Police call it a house of horrors. Now live at 5, two Georgia men will spend the rest of their lives in prison after being convicted of adopting two young boys, then sexually abusing them. The two men from Walton County were just sentenced to 100 years without parole. The district attorney's office spoke on the horrific nature of the crimes, writing, quote, "Those involved with the investigation and prosecution of this case will never forget what they had to see and hear in the case."
You got to give credit to the first responders, the police officers, the people that then prosecute some of these cases, because I just couldn't imagine having to see this type of stuff on a regular basis. I couldn't. And to know that some of the most horrific crimes are perpetuated against children makes it 10 times worse. 10 times worse. And you know what else I'm trying to figure out? Why isn't this story getting more visibility? I mean, we have so many distractions throughout the society. We have so many things that we see happening on a regular basis. I never, ever see this much visibility comes when people are sassy or they're a part of the alphabet community. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my algorithm. I don't see anybody. Well, I do see a few content creators that are trying to bring visibility to the issue, but I don't see any major platforms that are talking about this, highlighting it, having a conversation about it. And it almost makes me feel as though things are being censored. But let's deep dive into this, for example, because there is a couple different sources that I could use to have this conversation to learn more about it instead of just a 30-minute clip or a 30-second clip, rather, right? But this talks about husband who abused husbands with an S, no women in sight, two sassy men, adopted sons in a house of horror slap with massive prison sentences. Their names were William and Zachary Zulak. Recorded and shared the abuses inflicted on the two adopted sons. That means that these were somebody else's biological children. They can't have them themselves. And then they recorded and abused these two kids. Goes on to say, will spend 100 years in prison without the possibility of parole. They pleaded guilty to 6 counts of aggravated sodomy. And you know what the worst part about this is that they're going to go to prison, probably be somebody else's boyfriends, and they're not even gonna trip about it because it's gonna be like you know what I'm saying, they going on vacation, permanent vacation, courtesy of the taxpayers. These are the types of people, in my opinion, that should be considered for capital punishment. Let's continue. 3 counts of aggravated child molestation, 2 counts of incest, 2 counts of sexual exploitation of children. His husband, Zachary Zulak, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of blah, 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 blah. We get all of that. And 2 counts of pandering to a person under 18. Those involved in the investigation and prosecution say the case will never forget what they had to see and hear in the case. And it's even worse because these people is almost going to have like PTSD. And ditto for the kids that got to grow up with this, you know what I'm saying, with this horrific stuff that's been shared online and recorded. And y'all recording it too? The two defendants truly created a house of horrors and put extremely dark desires above everything and everyone else. They worked together on this. That means that these two demons, neither one of them was like, "Hey man, what you doing? We got to protect the children." No, they participated, set up the camera and did it. However, the depths of the defendant's depravity, which is as deep as it gets, is not greater than the resolve of those who fought for justice and strength of the victims in this case. Said the resolve of the 2 young victims who were in the 3rd and 4th grade at the time of Zulak's arrest. That means that these kids had to come home and experience this horrific behavior. Zulak's initially came under investigation after Georgia authorities received a cyber tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reporting suspected homemade child material uploaded to a Google account with an IP address in Walton County. Upon further investigation, deputies from the Walton County Sheriff's Office learned that the Zulaks lived with the victims. So the kids was being subjected to this the whole time. You know what one of the things was that was concerned during the pandemic was that when kids was home, they had nowhere else to turn to. They had no safe place. They had no possibility of communicating with an adult and saying, "Hey, this is what's happening to me. This is what's happening in my household. Please come save me." None of that. There was no possibility of it, and the kids was just at home going through it. Says that the authorities learned or the authorities interviewed the Zulaks on July 22nd, 2022. Both admitted to abusing their adopted sons over a period of time. Look at these guys. Monsters. Monsters. Investigators later collected electronic evidence, including surveillance cameras from inside the house, showing multiple instances of the defendants committing this abuse in different parts of the house. I don't even like reading all of the sentences the way that I do. I gotta, like, you know what I'm saying, tame the sentences down a little bit. Other electronic evidence includes cell phones containing these images, videos, text messages, and social media messages. Look at them. I am grateful for the hard work of so many to obtain an appropriate outcome in this case. I don't think it's appropriate. I think it needs to be even worse. The hard work of law enforcement put an end to the abuse suffered by the victims, and this resolution will help victims continue the process of healing. They'll never heal. They'll never heal. Says that they'll spend 100 years in prison without parole. This all but guarantees the victims will not have to worry as they grow older about their abusers being free. McGinley further stressed the importance of adopting children in need, but added that anyone who does so and then abuses those children deserves extremely harsh consequences and decades in prison. Sentence imposes not only appropriately punish these dependents for their repeated selfish actions, but also sends a message to the public that such actions will never be taken lightly. Two other men, Hunter Clay Lawless and Luis, were prosecuted and sentenced to prison after agreeing to testify against the Zulaks. Lawless admitted to receiving the information or receiving the pictures from Zachary and pleaded guilty to exploitation. Jesus Christ. These are the monsters, y'all. These are who you have to worry about every single day. So while they posing with the pictures, they couldn't wait to get home to do what they was going to do with the unsuspecting victims that was adopted, that was given up for adoption by somebody else that didn't want them. If this is not one of the most heinous things, and again, I was having a conversation with people, was it on the Millionaire Morning Show? Because Biden had commuted the sentences of all but 3 people that was on death row, and I was asking the people on the Millionaire Morning Show what they thought about capital punishment because Biden was under fire for it. And one of the family members of a woman that was killed needlessly, and she was shot 3 times in a bank robbery or something like that. And the family had tried to reach out to the Biden administration to give them their opinion of whether or not these people possibly was going to get commuted, and they wanted to make sure that they had a meeting with the White House, and it was basically refused. And then he commuted the sentences of the 3 people, or of the 37 people, I believe. Was it 37 or 34? 37 to 34 people, and that's how he became under fire. But I'm curious as to what y'all think. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Teach Henley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off of life. Let me know what y'all think about this. Evil.